What do you think of when you hear about Sorachi Hideaki's Gintama? Is it the over-the-top humor most people know it for? Is it the awe-inspiring sword clashes of good and evil? From the moment I laid my eyes on Gintama's first episode, I was convinced that this anime, this manga, this story, I knew it was special, and I enjoyed every moment of it. But there was a particular arc, a 2-episode arc, that took Gintama from great to legendary. And truly, this episode is what brought me to an extreme appreciation for Sorachi. I am unsure of what the technical name for this arc is, but I will call it the Mitsuba arc. Now, I want anyone who hasn't seen Gintama before to still be able to appreciate what Sorachi did in this story arc, so I'm going to introduce just a few characters. Sakata Gintoki is our main character. He is allied with members of the Shinsengumi, and for this episode, I will highlight 4 members of the Shinsengumi: Kondo Isao, Yamazaki, Hijikata Toshiro, and Okita Sogo. The next character I want to highlight is the one to whom this arc is about, Mitsuba Okita. And finally, we have Tomo Kuraba, a merchant. Now, this arc runs through episodes 86 and 87 of the Gintama anime, and that's what we're going to be focusing on, so I hope you guys enjoy this. Let's just jump right into it. Mitsuba, Okita's older sister, comes to the Shinsengumi headquarters to see her brother Sogo because she's about to get married. As she waits for him, she speaks with Kondo Isao, and it is established that they have a history, knowing her from years prior to the formation of the Shinsengumi. When Sogo arrives, the members of the Shinsengumi immediately notice the change in his character. The once sadist, unforgiving, unrelenting captain is now the meekest of individuals before his sister. Kondo explains that due to their parents dying early, Mitsuba raised Sogo, and for that, Sogo really honestly respects her. Sogo takes Mitsuba on a sightseeing trip around the city, and they stop at a restaurant to eat where Mitsuba asks Sogo if he has any friends. In classic Gintama fashion, Sogo actually finds Gintoki and has Gintoki feign being his friend by bribing him with chocolate parfait. As they talk, Sorachi does something he does for most main characters or side characters. He shows us what Mitsuba's gag is. Now, every character of importance in Gintama has somewhat of a gag. Gintoki loves strawberry milk and parfait. Toshiro likes adding mayonnaise to everything. Kondo goes out of his way to express his love for Otae, Shinpachi's sister, and Sogo is a sadist who hates Toshiro especially. Mitsuba's gag, as we find out, is that she likes spicy things. She adds anything she can to make something more spicy. Sorachi sprinkles some expert Gintama humor during this scene and has Sogo and Gintoki walk Mitsuba home. Mitsuba asks Sogo about Toshiro, to which Sogo walks away angrily, hinting that there's more to the situation than we know. In the meantime, Toshiro is tracking down a black market weapons dealer and finds out that the man Mitsuba is set to marry is actually a black market arms dealer. He unknowingly tracks the man down to his house, and that is where Toshiro and Mitsuba meet. Upon seeing Toshiro, Mitsuba collapses and they take her inside. Sogo comes to see her, and when he sees Toshiro, there's a very tense moment between the two, and Sogo asks Toshiro to leave, to which he simply does. Sorachi then takes us into a flashback, and we see Sogo pouting and lamenting that he does not want to go to practice because of a certain person there, which we find out to be Toshiro. Toshiro takes him by force, and this interaction makes Mitsuba laugh, something that angers Sogo, because he senses that Mitsuba likes Toshiro. Later on, Sogo, Toshiro, Kondo, and Mitsuba are eating out, and Toshiro and Mitsuba hit it off because both like putting odd things on their food. Spices for Mitsuba and mayonnaise for Toshiro. Sogo is getting mad at this. So Sorachi then takes us out of flashback, and we find Mitsuba in a hospital and learn that her wedding has been pushed back due to her illness. Back at the dojo, Toshiro and Sogo are training, and Sogo wants Toshiro to stay away from his sister. Toshiro tells Sogo that her husband is suspected of being an underworld dealer, to which Sogo tells Hijikata, which is the other name for Toshiro, that he still wants Toshiro to refrain from apprehending him until after the wedding, so his sister can be happy, even if for just a little while. You see, Mitsuba is dying and she doesn't have long left, and Sogo wants her to find happiness. Toshiro refuses to comply and simply says, "The deal is tomorrow night, be ready to fight." Sogo is angered by this and attacks Toshiro, but is soundly defeated. We go back into flashback and find out that Toshiro was telling Mitsuba that he and the others were leaving to go to Edo. Edo is where the story takes place. They were living in the outskirts at the time. Mitsuba wants to go with Toshiro, and we can clearly tell that she's in love with him. Toshiro, however, simply tells her, "Whatever you do is up to you." Unbeknownst to both of them, Sogo was listening in and takes Toshiro's demeanor to heart. "I don't like him," he says as he lays on the ground, having been defeated. We then go into episode 87, and Gin is talking with Mitsuba in the hospital. We find out that Mitsuba is also desperately trying to find happiness because she doesn't want Sogo to worry about her. As she speaks, she starts coughing up blood and is sent to the intensive care unit, and they are told that they should prepare for the worst. Yamazaki relays this information to Toshiro hours before the deal goes down and tells Toshiro to go see her before her time is up. Toshiro refuses and is more interested in the fact that her husband-to-be is more concerned with his dealings than being with his wife. Toshiro steels himself and heads over to fight the rebels alone. Back at the hospital, Gintoki's asleep, snoring loudly on a bench, while Kondo and Sogo are talking. Kondo wants Sogo to go get some rest and tries to convince Sogo by claiming that he already slept before. But, and again, Sorachi's being a genius, when you look at Kondo's face, he's got bags under his eyes. Kondo has in fact not been sleeping, and neither has Sogo. With bags under their eyes, both characters try faking how they are not at all tired and take somewhat of an offense to Gintoki's laid-back attitude and sleeping on the bench right outside her hospital room. Kondo tells Sogo that he heard about the fight Sogo had with Toshiro and tells him that Toshiro claimed that he would never lose to Sogo the way he is. I suppose this is a good time to mention that while Toshiro is known as the demon vice captain of the Shinsengumi, Okita Sogo is actually in fact known as the strongest swordsman in Japan. Knowing that is what gives Toshiro's words weight because he's making quite the statement. Sogo does not want to talk about Toshiro, who won't even show his face even though Mitsuba is dying. Their conversations progress and Sogo starts to speak out of turn when Yamazaki runs in with the news that Toshiro is planning to stop the weapons deal and take on the rebels by himself. Gintoki is still in frame, asleep through all of this by the way. Kondo questions Yamazaki on why he never said a thing and the truth is revealed. Toshiro made Yamazaki swear to not speak on this because if the other members of the Shinsengumi found out that the captain's family is tied to the leader of an underground weapons dealer, he would lose his position. Sogo is shocked at this revelation and tries to leave when Kondo grabs him and orders him to stay. It is at this point where Sogo starts saying things he shouldn't. Speaking about how he's not pure or about how little he thought of his comrades, Sogo comes off as an arrogant, condescending man, and Kondo snaps, punching him and sending him flying onto the side of the bench Gintoki's lying on. Gintoki's not saying a word still asleep, this man. Kondo tells Sogo that the relationship between them and Toshiro is such that when one wanders off the path, the other punches them back into place. With this mechanism in place, all three of them will always walk straight. Before he leaves, he asks Sogo, "If I stray off the path, it'll be your turn to punch me. Isn't that right?" So Kondo leaves, and as Sogo is draped over the side of the bench, he starts talking, speaking about how Mitsuba loved and waited for Toshiro. Sogo knew. He knew why Toshiro could not accept her love. As leader of the Shinsengumi, he would live a life of constant danger, and he was in no position to give her the happy life she deserved. Sogo gets up to his feet and thanks Gintoki for listening, at which point Gin wakes up and turns to Sogo. We take a look at Gintoki, and Gintoki has bags under his eyes too. Sorachi, my man, that's ridiculous. Gintoki wasn't sleeping either. Neither of them were, and none of them were actually asleep. And we know this because of the bags under their eyes. Gintoki tries to play it off saying, "Oh, I got beat up by a bunch of guys," to which it's just Sorachi, classic Sorachi. Gintoki wasn't asleep either. So the two leave together, and by them leaving, even as Mitsuba is dying, no family member or friend is present to be with her. Meanwhile, at the side of the deal, Toshiro ambushes Mitsuba's husband-to-be, Kuraba, and has to fight a bunch of rebels alone. As he fights, he gets shot in the leg, and while this is happening, Mitsuba's pulse starts to weaken. The doctor asks for a family member, but no one is present. They're all heading towards the weapons deal location. Kondo is heading there himself with a militia of Shinsengumi cars, lamenting that no one in the Shinsengumi would actually kick Sogo out just because he had relatives who were criminal. Sogo is headed there himself with Gintoki. Toshiro gets cornered and Kusaba finally reveals the truth. The truth is, Kusaba simply wanted to be on the good side of the Shinsengumi in order to perform his dealings in peace. He figured that he could control Sogo by marrying his sister. He says that he loves her. As a merchant, I love my tools, and I love that which makes profit for me. Toshiro gets to his feet and speaks his truth. He loved Mitsuba. He loved her dearly, but he knew that he could not make her happy. I just wanted the girl I loved to be happy. Fortunately, Kondo comes in with reinforcement, and as Kusaba attempts to escape in his car, Toshiro stabs him from atop the roof of the car. While doing this, Gintoki with his scooter comes along the side of the car and jams one of the tires. He hands Toshiro a bag of spicy rice crackers and tells him to give it to Mitsuba. Down the road, Sogo stands ready with a sword in hand. Toshiro jumps off the roof of the car and jams the tires on the other side, sending the car tumbling into the air, where Sogo slices the entire vehicle clean in two. Everyone immediately heads to the hospital, but it's almost too late, because Mitsuba is drawing her final breath. Sogo kneels on the ground beside her with her hand in his, as she gives him her final words. She imparts words of advice, encouragement, and gratitude, and she dies. Her hand goes limp and falls out of Sogo's, but he grabs her hand and holds it tightly against his face. Mitsuba is dead. Atop the hospital on the roof, Hijikata is standing on the ledge with an open bag of spicy rice crackers. Damn, these rice crackers are spicy. It's making me cry. A few feet behind him, behind a small structure, Gintoki is sitting looking in the opposite direction. The two do not say a word to each other. Gintoki just opens up another bag, takes a rice cracker and eats it. The camera pans slowly into the sky as 4 stars glow. 1 star flickers brightly as the episode ends. The 4 stars are symbolic of Sogo, Mitsuba, Toshiro, and Kondo. And the star that flickered was the last flickering of Mitsuba's life. The Mitsuba arc is over. This is quite frankly peak storytelling under any circumstance. And Sorachi always does this. Something you believe to be just a gag ends up being very important. You see, when it comes to writing characters, your main focus is to find a way to have your readers connect with the characters. It doesn't matter what it is, you want them to connect on some level. Toshiro's mayonnaise gag is something you will always connect to him because of how odd it is. By connecting you to one thing about them, Sorachi opens up the door to connecting you to the rest of the things about them. We always thought that Sogo's hate for Toshiro was a gag, but in fact, he was dead serious. I mean, Sorachi, how good can you be? Mitsuba was here for 2 episodes. Only 2 episodes, but by the end of it, you felt like you just lost a main character. This arc is a perfect example of proper pacing, elite characterization, and an earnest depiction of how good Sorachi Hideaki is as an author. If you ever wondered whether Gintama was worth your time, I am here to tell you, watch Gintama. Gintama is an amazing series. Sorachi is an amazing mangaka, and he deserves more recognition in the West. I say the West because the Japanese recognize Sorachi's greatness. They do. On a poll that was meant to measure mangas that define oneself, Gintama ranked number 3 only behind One Piece and Full Metal Alchemist. That's how good Gintama is. That's how good Sorachi is. Watch Gintama. I promise you, it'll be worth your time. So tell me guys, what do you think of this? What do you think of this episode? What is your favorite Gintama arc? I had a lot of fun watching this. It's only 2 episodes, but it feels so long. There's so much detail. There's so much character progression, character dissections. It's just so much poured into this very short arc. 2 episodes. And yet it makes such an impact. Amazing. Amazing. I'm going to catch you guys later. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next Rebirth video.